It's good to see you this morning. I had surgery this week, had my second cataract surgery, and yeah, I can see, but ladies, you better start wearing a little more makeup. I can see now. You look fine, all of you. You look great, just like you are. This morning I'm going to be preaching out of the 8th chapter of John. And it's going to take me a couple of weeks to get through this chapter. It's got a lot to say to us, and I want to spend a little time here. I don't want to rush through this. It's such good stuff. This morning I want to talk about the truth. The truth. I'm going to call the sermon, "The Truth is Freeing." It frees you up. And honestly, it is amazing how your life can become so beautiful when you live with truth. Now, if you try to always cover up a lie, or if you're trying to be something you're not, or some, you've got some bad thing in your past you're trying to hide from everybody else, it's a burden to try to live with lies in your life. I'm not smart enough to be a good liar, so I had to learn early on to tell the truth, because I'd forget the stories that I've told. I want to try to tell the truth if I can, but especially this morning, I'm going to be bringing you a whole bunch of truth. Now, it's hard to know the whole truth. Now, what we've done today in our world is we have divided up the world into your truth and my truth and their truth and then somebody else's truth. And we've forgotten, listen to me, that there is absolute truth. Now, I believe there is absolute truth. Now, I'm tolerant of people, and I don't want to impose my beliefs on anybody. I mean, I know, but I want to tell you what, I believe there is only one truth. And we find that in the Word of God, based upon biblical values, based upon the Bible. And so if you're here today and you are already upset with me because I've told you that there is absolute truth and that your truth might be a little bit questionable, just give me a little chance to listen to the rest of the sermon before you judge, because today I want to talk with you about how the Bible is a truth that you can build your life upon that will truly fix it and make it work so good. Now, I'm going to be speaking this morning about the truth that we find in Jesus, and that truth that's found in Him is the only truth that will last and will hold your life. Now, the Bible truth keeps the world from going crazy. If you trying to live in a world that's got a little truth, got some truth here, and this truth is different here, and the truth is different here, folks, it's always so confusing that it's going to run you crazy. We've got to come back and fix our world by believing in one truth and one foundational, absolute truth and learning. So today I want to talk about when Jesus tells us the truth about what that's like. And so I want to start reading in the 8th chapter of John. If you will, join me in the first verse. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn He appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around Him, and He sat down to teach them. Now the Jews, I believe that the Jews were God's chosen people. I believe God chose them, and I know they're some of the most religious people on earth. Well, they've got religious laws and ceremonies and prayers and all kinds of things for almost every part of their life. But by the time Jesus came to earth, the Jewish people had taken their religion and turned it from 10 statements, 10 commandments, and turned it into hundreds and hundreds of constricting, burdensome rules and laws. And so their life was shackled down, and they were tied up, and they couldn't do what they needed to do, really, because their religion had become so burdensome. So Jesus came, and He tried to alleviate the load on the Jewish people. He said, "I am the light of the world. I have come to shine God's light into your darkness." And so that's what Jesus came to do today. I want you to know that changing the world is a dangerous job. When you come with a truth, or even today as a preacher standing, I know I'm safe here, but if there are places close to here that if I told you today that I believe in absolute truth and that there's only one truth, you would be, I would be in a minority, and I would be, hollered down or whatever, shouted down, because people don't believe that. They think there's all kinds of a different kind of truth. But changing the world is dangerous work, but that's what we're doing. We are joining with Jesus as He changes this world from darkness to light. When we came out here to the stockyards to begin to work for the Lord here in this cowboy church, we didn't really come here to start a church, an organization. We came here to change the world. You with me? We came here to start a movement. Not just start a church, but to start a movement. To join with a group of people that were getting back to the basics, back to the simplicity, back to the Word of God, back to simple worship, back to fellowship. And we've come to change that cultural setting. But that's dangerous work. And Jesus came to change the world, and it was a dangerous job. And He knew that. However, He had to go to Jerusalem. That's where it had to start. We talked about this last week, how when Jesus came to begin to preach, He knew that He must go to Jerusalem, the capital city, to where it had to all get started from there. Now, so Jesus came to the temple, and He lit that fire that is going to change the world and turn on the light of God. This morning I come to this message knowing that some people in this room are burdened. You are burdened. You're tied. You're constricted. You're bound with a lie. You're bound with something that's happened in your life early on or recently, and you're ashamed of it, and you feel like that your life is ruined. It's over, and you can't get through to a future that's bright and hopeful because of something that's happened or something that you've done, and you're all bound up and burdened. I've come today to set you free. I've come today to turn you loose, to let you loose from that shackled you and holding you back. Because I've come today with great truth, the truth that will free you from your shackles. And that truth, of course, is Jesus Christ. Now, when you start talking about truth, it's hard to qualify. I don't believe there are levels of truth. I believe there's only one truth. And so when I say to you, what is the single most important truth behind truth, that's a complicated question. But today, we're going to try to get to the very bottom of the truth and see if we can deal with some unchangeable truth issues that will truly change your life. The first thing I want to start by saying today, in the outline of the message, the outline, it will be like this. The truth behind all truth is that Jesus forgives sin. Amen. And I don't know about you, but that is so freeing. I've been preaching this gospel all my life, and I get great joy out of that because I get to tell you that you can be turned loose from the burden of your sin. You can be forgiven. I don't care what you've done. I don't care how bad you are. You can be freed and forgiven from that sin. You can walk out of these stockyards today a totally different person than when you came in here. You can be free. A child of God walking in the light of the Lord. So today, that's the good news I have for you. Jesus forgives sin. And so come with me now as we watch this happen. Now I'm going to tell you a little story today. And actually, Jesus is going to tell, John is telling the story about something Jesus did. And it's a story of a woman who has been caught in the very act of adultery. I don't know how they caught her. I don't know what went on before this. I don't know how long it had been going on. I just know that this woman was caught in the very act of adultery. And I kind of get a smile on my face as I think about, wonder what happened to the man. Yeah, where's he? Was she committing adultery all by herself? I think it takes two to commit adultery, if I'm not mistaken. So the man, apparently, and ladies, what I'm saying is, we're not fair. Life is not fair. And we judge one group of one sex more harsh than the other. And in this situation, this woman was caught in adultery, and they kind of overlooked the man's participation in this. But let's read about it. And I'm going to tell you about this story. Because we find this woman, she's been caught in the act of adultery. She's been dragged to the very center part of the town, there by the temple, where there's thousands of people around. And these righteous, pious men gather around her, and they accuse her and shame her publicly for being caught in this act of adultery. And they have the right by Jewish law to stone her to death because of this sin. So they're there to judge her, to shame her, and then ultimately to kill her and take her life in a capital punishment form. But they have another agenda too. And probably this is the agenda behind the agenda, is that they wanted to try to trap Jesus into some kind of something so they could accuse him and kill him. So they bring this woman who's been caught in adultery, and by Jewish law she can be stoned. So they say, okay, Jewish Jesus, you rabbi, you're supposed to be Messiah. So what do you think we ought to do with her? And so now we find ourselves going to learn what God thinks about sin, how He deals with sinners, as we read this fantastic, wonderful, healing and forgiving story. Because Jesus is going to do something we never dreamed God would do. He forgives sin. Let's read about it. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery, and they made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery, and in the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now, what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. Now when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again Jesus stooped down and rolled on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." Here's what God did. Jesus, He heard the sin accusation. He bent down and wrote in the dirt or in the sand, the dust of the street. I don't know what He wrote. Who knows what He wrote? But let's just say He wrote down, maybe He started writing the 10 Commandments. Maybe that's what I don't know what He wrote. But let's say He got down to the adultery part and He wrote down, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." And maybe He put this woman's name who was caught in adultery. But notice where He wrote it. He wrote it in the sand, knowing that the next rain would wash it away, knowing that the wind would blow it away. In other words, he didn't carve it in stone. He wrote it in sand and dirt, because He knew that He was going to forgive that sin. And so He turned to the woman and He said, "I don't condemn you anymore. Just go and change your life. Don't live continually in sin. Come and follow me." And so Jesus forgives sin. Now listen, let's begin to preach about this, because we've got a lot of crazy ideas about sin. And probably even in this room, there is a lot of crazy ideas about sin. For instance, if you were to ask people, is this sin worse than this sin? Or what about, is it, a little white lie, that's not as bad as a really bad sin, is it? I mean, are there good sins and bad sins, white sins and black? Are there? No, sin is sin. Are you with me? Sin is sin, is sin, is sin. It's all wrong. And there's no good sins or bad sins. Now, in our culture, we have weighted sin. We say, well, this is worse or that, but not biblically, not theologically. Sin is all equal. And so, if we drive 56 miles an hour in a 55 mile zone, that's just as bad a sin as something worse. Okay. So I want you to understand that. Jesus came to forgive sin and not condemn us any further. There is so much condemnation in our world today. It's so easy for us to look around and see sin and say, "Oh, that's sin, that's horrible. That's sin, that's horrible. Oh, that bad person." But Jesus didn't come to lay condemnation on us. He knew we were already condemned, so He didn't come to pile on. And I don't know about you, but as I was a child, I grew up thinking that God was like some heavenly parent just waiting for me to step across the line. He's going to bust me, you know. I mean, just God was just like He followed me around. Okay, I'm going to wait till you mess up, and then I'm going to bust you. You know? Because I know you're going to mess up, and He was right. I did. I'm still messing up today. But God's not that kind of God. He's not some pouting parent who wants to follow you around to catch you in some sin. He didn't come to catch us in sin. He knew we were in sin when He came. He came to free us from it and to forgive us of sin and condemn us no longer. Now, the Jews were here, were involved with all this stuff, and they were trying to add weight to this sin and make this adultery sin such a horrible thing. Well, it is horrible, but so is any other kind of sin. They're all equal in God's sight. So what do you do this morning? If you're here and you have sin in your life, and by the way, you all do. We all do. And so since we have sin in our life, what do we do with it? Friend, just bring it to Jesus. Bring it to Him. In other words, be honest with Him. Don't try to hide it. How can you hide your sin anyway? He knows everything about us. So bring it to Jesus. Let Him deal with it and receive His forgiveness. And when you have been forgiven, you can walk out of these stockyards today literally different than when you came in. Come in with the burden of sin, leave without it, because you can leave it with Jesus. Now, I want to tell you another truth today, and that is sort of, a lot of these truths are subtly circles. I mean, they're subtly stuck onto that one truth. But listen carefully. Truth cannot be found outside of Jesus. There is no truth that exists outside of Him. He is the truth. He said that one time. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. In other words, He is truth. And you cannot find it outside of Him. So for instance, if your college professor tells you a kind of truth that's outside of Jesus' truth, listen to me, it's not truth. Well, I don't care who tells you what it is. If it's not in the center of Jesus' truth, it's some kind of other truth. It's only found in Him. Let's read what He says there in verse 12. When Jesus spoke again to the people, He said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Now the Pharisees challenged Him. Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. So Jesus was saying to them, look guys, I am the light of the world. The prophets in the Old Testament said the same thing. They said He's going to be the light that walks in the darkness and dispels the darkness. So when Jesus began to say, I'm the light of the world, it really messed those religious people up. Boy, they got all nervous. And they said, well, you can't do that because you're just one person. And in Jewish law, you have to have two people to testify in court. If you testify with just one, it can't go to court that way. So they said, you're just one testimony. Where's your other testimony? And Jesus is going to tell us in a moment that He's got a lot of other people on His side. I'm the light of the world. I'm not religion. I've come to change the world. Look at verse 14. Jesus answered, even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid, for I know where I came from and where I'm going. But you have no idea where I came from or where I'm going. You judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one. But if I do judge, my decisions are true because I'm not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. Now in your own law it is written that the testimony of two witnesses is true. I am one who testifies for myself. My other witness is the Father who sent me. Then they asked Him, well, where is your Father? And Jesus said, listen now, He said, you do not know me or my Father. Jesus replied, if you knew me, you would know my Father also. Folks, you talk about a knife in the eye of those Jewish people. He just said, you guys, you don't know God. I mean, you've spent your life trying to serve Him and preach about Him, but you don't know Him yourself. Because if you knew Him, you would accept me, because I'm the Son, and the Father stands with me. We're one and the same. Now, as I said, two witnesses won't work. Jesus is telling us that God stands with Him, that the other witness is the Father. Now, I don't know about you this morning, that I believe that my truth is in Christ. I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I believe He came to light this world. And that's the truth that builds a great life upon. Now, if you're trying to make your life work by building on some lie, listen, it will not stand the test of time. You have to build it upon the truth. What makes me believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Well, there's a lot of things. I think, to me, one of the greatest proofs to me is the changed lives of the apostles. Mm-hmm. To me, that is one of the greatest truths imaginable. I talked about this last week just a little bit. Going into the crucifixion and the resurrection, they were confused, doubters, flaky, in and out, But after the resurrection, after they saw Jesus, those men were radically changed. For the rest of their lives, they preached the gospel. They left family and friends, went all over the world to preach the gospel. They died martyrs' deaths to say, I believe Jesus was the Son of God. I wouldn't have done that if I didn't believe it, would you? I would have changed my story to live. But they didn't change their story even to death. Well, that's one of the truths. But if you throw that away, what other truths do we have? The greatest proof other than that to me is the cross and the resurrection itself. Right. So let's talk now about that, because I believe the cross proves to me the divinity of Jesus. Verse 21. Once more Jesus said to them, I'm going away, and you will look for me, and you will die in your sin. Where I go, you cannot come. This made the Jews ask, will he kill himself? Is that what he says? Where can I go? You cannot come? But he continued, you are from below, I'm from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins if you do not believe that I am He. You will indeed die in your sins. Verse 25. Who are you? They asked. Just as I've been telling you from the beginning, Jesus replied. I have much to say in judgment of you, but He who sent me is trustworthy, and what I have heard from Him I tell the world. They did not understand that He was telling them about His Father. So Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am He, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases Him. And even as He spoke, many believed in His divinity. Now, my friend, Jesus made a statement here in this text that has been one of the greatest sources of hope for me, especially what I do as a preacher, when He said, if I be lifted up, when I'm lifted up, I will draw the world to me. And so my job as a preacher is to lift Jesus up to you today. Because when I lift Him up, I know what's going on. There is a supernatural attraction from the heart of the people that draws men to Jesus. My job is just to lift Him up and to point at Him. And God's job is the job of drawing you to Him. Now that's what you're feeling this morning as I'm talking about the crucifixion. You're feeling a warm place in your heart. You're feeling a love that you can't express. You feel a love for God and a love for others. That's supernatural. It doesn't come from you. It draws you into that wonderful story and picture of Christ hanging on the cross. Now these religionists had already made their mind up. They were already convinced. We're not going to believe Jesus. We're not going to listen to Him. They already had their mind made up. And Jesus revealed the truth to them. He said, the reason you don't believe me is because you're from here and I'm not from here. You're from earth, I'm not from earth. I came to this earth to save mankind. I came to save you, but I'm not from here. That's why it's hard for you to understand me. See, listen to me. He said to them, if you're going to die in your sin. Now, were these bad people? No, they weren't bad people. These were good people, but they were going to die in their sin. Why is that? Because listen now carefully, real carefully listen. Religion will not save your soul. Amen. You will never get saved by going to church, by doing religious activity. You will never be saved by doing that. The only way you can ever be saved is by believing in the Lord Jesus Christ. Have you ever heard anybody say, well, you better quit lying like that, you'll go to hell for lying? Well, yeah, you go to hell for lying, yeah, but not if you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. People don't go to hell just because they lie or because they kill or murder. They go to lie because they don't have faith in Christ. This morning, I have the greatest news to tell you. Jesus is absolute truth. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus died on a cross for your sin and for my sin. And on the third day, He came out of that dead condition and He rose back to life. And today He is still alive at the right hand of the Father. And one of these days, He's going to come back and get us. So I lift up Jesus this morning. I hold Him up. I point to Him and I say, He is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the only thing that's true. And I know in my heart that He's drawing people to Him today. If you feel drawn to the Lord today, if you feel a desire to know Him more, I want you to get home, get alone, get quiet, get away from the distractions of the world, get alone with the Lord, and just have a long conversation with Him. Be honest with Him about who you are, about your sin. Be truthful with Him about your life. And then invite Him into your existence, into your life, to be your friend, to walk with you. He taught us in the New Testament a concept. You remember I've told you there are two equations. The equation of faith, faith equals righteousness. We talked about that in Abraham. Faith equals righteousness. He also taught us that confession or agreement with Him saves us. Confession. He says, if you confess your sins, He says, I am faithful and just to forgive us, to forgive your sins and cleanse you from all unrighteousness. Your job is to confess what's going on in your life. Your job is to be honest with God. That's how you get right with Him, by being honest with Him. And then when you believe in Him, accept His forgiveness, He translates that into righteousness. Wow, that's what a wonderful thing I have to tell you this morning. That is truth. And that is truth that has kept this world sane, that's kept this world together for the past 2,000 years. And that is truth that you can build your life on. You can raise your family on that truth. You can create a career on that truth. You can make that truth the foundation and solid rock that you can build a life upon. And that is the truth I have to come to tell you today. Next week, we're going to continue in this chapter of John, of the 8th chapter, and look at more of what happens to those who follow the truth and watch how it works out in their lives. But today, I come at the end of this little sermon today to say to you, come to Jesus. Come to Him. He's the light of the world and your hope today. Would you pray with me?